Hello everyone, welcome back to Random Acts of Squirrel. It's been a couple weeks since I filmed, so I have missed you. Hopefully you have missed me too. Substitute Squirrel is off causing chaos elsewhere. Now you get to be stuck with actual Squirrel. I spent about the last week or so on traveling around with Digital Girl, did a road trip, fun stuff like that. We'll get to that in a little bit later. Today is Act 18, Random Acts of Cinema. Barbie, the Devil, and Sinking Ships, a Barbie review. So, I didn't plan on ever seeing this movie. My hope was actually to see, of all things, The Birds. It had the 60th anniversary of the Hitchcock movie, and it was being released in theaters in some places, and that was my thing. But then there was Nephews, and Life, and Digital Girls, and Cleaning, and somehow Barbie happened. I'm not exactly sure how, but Barbie happened, and the movie I didn't plan on seeing in 2023 I got to see because Digital Girl wanted to see it. She had seen some reviews from people that she trusted, and there you go. You have a video, I guess. Decided if I'm going to watch it, I'll at least talk about it. A little backstory, and then we'll tie it all together. There was a guy on radio, I always loved what he did. He'd always talk about like some subject, and Mahler monologue is what he called it. It was on ESPN and that stuff, but he'd always take like three thoughts when he had a subject, mash them together, and that's kind of what it feels like today. So, back in 1997, there's this little movie called Titanic that got released by this director who doesn't know how to make a small movie, James Cameron. He went over budget, scared the crap out of the studios, ended up producing one of the biggest movies of all time. I was in college at the time, and it really took over. Well, I have a story here in a moment, but a couple things that still are mind-blowing is the movie was like $200 million in 1997 money, and its overall gross $2.257 billion. It is one of the highest grossing, if not highest grossing movies of all time internationally, or just globally in general. It's that huge yet. It was nominated for 14 Academy Awards, Best Director, Best Picture. It won 11, and that actually tied the record all time for Academy stuff. I don't know if it still has it, but Ben-Hur in 1959 set it up. As far as the devil part, we'll tie all this together in a little bit, I promise. It's about the Exorcist, which it's Halloween, so you can get your spook on. Released in 1973 as a movie from a book from 1971 from a guy named William Peter Blatty. He had heard about the exorcism that happened the year before. In 1949, he went to school in Georgetown. He fictionalized it and made it the story of two priests going against an exorcism in the Georgetown area, which is where he went to college. It became a huge book and an even bigger movie. It was the first horror movie that was nominated for Best Picture, plus 9 other nominations. And another part that's kind of mind-blowing too is the budget was $12 million. It's bang for buck. It's considered one of the highest grossing movies as far as bang for buck goes in the history of film. With re-releases and stuff like that, it's made over $441 million, which is kind of mind-blowing too. Barbie in numbers. Barbie's either, I'm not sure at this point in time, either the second highest or the highest grossing movie in 2023 globally. And according to Wikipedia, I don't know when this is, at $1.44 billion. It was directed by Greta Gerwig. It starred Margot Robbie as a stereotypical Barbie, Ryan Gosling as the primary Ken. America Ferrera's in there as like a secretary and a main thread in the storyline. Kate McKinnon plays Weird Barbie, which is an integral character on the other side. And Will Ferrell plays the CEO of Mattel. And Rhea Perlman plays the creator of Barbie. And that's kind of a cool thing. I'll deviate to that in a moment. Little fun story here. They're all tied together, and the way that I ended up seeing Barbie kind of reminded me of this. Back when I was more young and foolish, whereas now I think I'm old and dumb some days. this thing called Titanic came out. And it was huge, and you kind of had to be there to really fully experience how big it was. It was in the theaters for over a year, or dang close to a year, where it was just hanging around making money. And it was really that big of a phenomena. There were shirts where people wore it just out of absolute irritation, saying the ship sunk, get over it. You had the whole Celine Dion thing, you had the arms, you had all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not a mainstream guy. I like my things, I don't like my things. Sometimes I know what I like, I know what I don't like. And you can like your stuff, I'm okay with it. My stuff tends to not be super popular, and I'm okay with that. Occasionally it's super popular, but again, I don't care. I'm going to like it either way. So I wasn't going to disrespect anybody who loved Titanic, but I had very little interest in joining the conversation. About 3/4 into it, so it's almost out of the theater, I'm thinking I can get out of this one, possibly. My girlfriend at the time's like, I have the biggest surprise for you. And so I was excited. I mean, it's girlfriends, surprises, this should be fun. And we show up at the theater, and she says, we're going to go watch Titanic. This is her 4th time. And I'm thinking, what have I done to you to make you... I have no interest. And so, in my mind, I sat through a 3-hour movie about a cheating romance. And yes, it's technically good, and I get all the awards, but yeah, no interest. And it's probably one of the most obnoxious movie experiences I've ever had, at least the ones I've been invited to. I was dreading that going into Barbie, because the only reason I was really watching it is because Digital Girl really wanted to watch it. So, somewhere out of kindness, because nephew came over and we watched Happy Death Day, which I enjoyed much more, but that's a digression. I was able to rent it for free, and so I rented it because I promised I would watch it once with her. Much to my pleasant surprise, it was not a Titanic experience. I didn't dread it. Didn't love it. We'll get more into the review in a little bit. But I didn't hate it, which I found that at least happy, because I was expecting to be really, really not for me. What I was surprised by, and one of the reviews went in, it was somewhere she likes to follow. One guy loathed it because the movie is very openly feminist. Any review you can see it, that's what it's going to say. The one review she followed more, and she listens to his reviews more, said, yes, it is, but it's almost satirical to the point where it's sort of nakedly showing feminism. And so he almost found it like a farce level, where he was enjoying the satire and farce of this is feminism taken to its most extreme. And so she was curious, is that really what it is? So I breathed and said, yes, I will watch this once with you. And that's where I heard this story, and I think it's true, so if somebody knows more facts to it, please go ahead and post it, because I like to live in facts. But I had heard that some of the producers involved in The Exorcist were actually Satanists. So their whole goal of making is kind of like when people make Jesus Revolution. They really love Jesus. They really love Satan. They wanted to show how powerful Satan was by doing this Exorcist movie. And they really wanted to stick it to the Christians, and especially the Catholics, to show how much powerful their Satan was versus all the Christian stuff that was out there. And so they really did a good job of showing what an exorcism looked like, the graphicness of it, the details, the ritual, that kind of stuff. And when they filmed it, the number one group they wanted to piss off was the Christians. And much to their surprise, the Catholic Council of Bishops, I think that's what it is that reviews a lot of the movies, gave it a glowing review. They said, yes, it's gruesome, yes, it's kind of gory, but it's accurate and true. And they, I guess, were just livid going, we're trying to find a movie to absolutely piss these people off, and they end up making something that the other side absolutely praised. And there's a third type of review coming through with Barbie, and it's feminism unlocked, feminism full open, people really so dedicated to some of those beliefs and ideals, and sort of more smugly described version of Hollywood feminist kind of storyline. there's no shielding on this. It's absolutely what it is, and it leads to its conclusion. It talks about being in a bubble versus the real world, all that kind of stuff. And so those conservatives that saw it ended up kind of having the Exorcist approach where they looked and said, wait a minute, we like this because you finally have said everything we thought that you believe. The structure of the movie, I have to say, is really good. And so when Oscar time comes around and award times come around, if it wins awards on production or writing or direction or music, it fully deserves it. It is a very well-designed film. And so I could watch it for the pure quality that they knew they were making something about Barbie, but they really kept the world Barbie world. So like the swimming pools looked like the swimming pools. The characters moved in two-dimensional sort of layer worlds, that kind of stuff. And the design was very well thought out. The costuming was very well done. They made it so that it looked kind of like the Barbie stuff, but it still looked as glamorous as Barbie looks when she wears it. Because the reality is the body type that Barbie is, A, wouldn't work in this world, and B, the clothes on there wouldn't fit someone that would normally in real land, like or in reality, or what, I forget what they call it there, but it would fit in not Barbie world, in reality. The jokes were sometimes funny. I didn't laugh a lot at it. To me, it was kind of like being the guy to Slumber Party. I really wasn't getting into it. But the way they broke in the music, the style of the jokes that they did, there's a recurring thing when they went from Barbie world into the real world, where they're singing to songs to the car, and you watch how they do it. And I laughed at some of those moments. It is definitely heavily. I guess they use words like patriarchy, and they definitely talk about like the Andrew Tate style stuff, and they definitely fire shots at it. And some of them are actually really sharp and really funny. And some of the stuff that they talk about college feminism and how idealistic it is to the point of being ridiculous, it is really funny for the way it's set up. For me, though, it never went past the fact that this is a plastic doll. And the depth never went good enough where, like, when they're making sharp stuff, it never really hit well enough. It never bored me enough that I completely shut it off and said, yes, dear, I can't handle this. But it never engaged me enough to say, thank you for letting me watch it either. So I'm not going to say I want those 2 hours back because I got to spend it with my wife. But if I wasn't watching it with her, I probably would have either fast forward to see how the hook is on the end, or I would have just turned it off. One of the neat little hooks in it was Rhea Perlman. She plays the creator she's the ghost of the creator of Barbie. And as a complete side note, I was always entertained by this. I don't know if it's useful or not. But Rhea Perlman is maybe all of like 4'11" or 4'10", something like that. And for a large number of years, she was married to Danny DeVito, who is probably got to be one of the shortest people in Hollywood to have a mainstaying career. He might be all of 4'10" himself. And for the longest time, I was always entertained when they did like the lines where people dress up and then they stand in front of the big screens before they go to events and stuff like that. And you saw these two people that couldn't even top off at 5 foot. I don't know, I was entertained by it. Kind of the same way I'm entertained by two really tall people, but that's a side note. The end for me on Barbie is the part where I get what they're aiming for, but for me, it didn't really stick the landing. It brought up the questions of, after all the plot went on, where Barbie crosses into reality, and then the character played by America Ferrera crosses into Barbie Land, and eventually they fix Barbie Land again, and Kens get put back in their place. Barbie's left with the choice of going, where do you choose to go? Now that Barbie Land, which is sort of viewed as that sort of perfect feminism in a bubble, and then the reality, which is a lot harsher and not nearly as clean, where do you choose to go? I see why the adults really love the ending. But I'm going to jump thoughts into another movie to see where I think people are going to be disappointed in the future with this. And that's Super Mario Brothers, which is again one of the top grossing movies of this year. Super Mario Brothers stayed within its universe. It never broke universe. It never tried to be bigger and say like, hey, Super Mario is now going to be a real person or things like that. And so when it's going to go into sequels, it didn't do anything that kind of mocked the IP or questions its existence. It stayed within its universe. Barbie, because it bounced in and out of its universe, I know it made a boatload of money, and I know sequels have been greenlit, and they want to build a Barbie universe. I don't see how they're going to do it. Because Barbie, like Mario, like all these other IPs, live in their own special universe, and none of these universes actually reflect into the real world. They're reflections or concepts of the real world. And so I do get a little concerned for a Barbie too, because I think it's going to underwhelm a lot of people. As far as the review goes, here we go, write this down. Alright, got this. There we are. It took some focusing here. I take 2 weeks off. I can't focus my whiteboard. My apologies. I'm giving it 5 out of 10, which is actually higher than I expected. I came in expecting like 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10 for my stuff. It's not the worst movie I've sat through that's very driven towards women. It's not the best one. And the overall quality on it was strong enough that I could at least appreciate it throughout the process of it. Actually, because the last part that I said, and especially watching how she kind of really engaged to it, even on more of the satire side of it versus the love side of it, I'm giving it 7 out of 10. I really am not the audience for this one, but the fact that you didn't bore me, the fact you didn't completely drive me crazy, I'm going to give you a passing grade. So for the people who are watching this who've seen Barbie, what is their opinion? How would they review it? Any favorite scenes? That kind of thing. If you like this, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe here. I'm trying to grow this thing and have some fun with it. And hopefully it can include you and a bunch of other people. And that's one of the ways to help keep growing this thing for me. And as a super secret side note, one of the other things that I filmed today, it's still in process. I haven't opened. Well, I have filmed parts of open. It's going to be there eventually. And I have a clothes I'm going to start putting on these things to make them look a little more classy, a little more professional. Otherwise, everyone have a good rest of your day. And thank you for watching.